Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the First Unitarian Church in New Bedford. We are delighted to have you here with us today. We also have a special congregational meeting today after our service that begins at noon through Zoom. You should have received an invitation and the material needed to vote for our lovely minister, Karen Anderson. So I hope you all join that lovely meeting and embark on the journey of what's to come. So that's happening after service today. I would like to say hello to all the little people out there watching, in addition to the people that we might not even know. Our church is a welcoming one, and we invite you to join along. Send in a donation if you want even, or just reach out and say hi. So before we begin, let us light our chalice. Be ours a religion, which like sunshine goes everywhere, and its temple all space, its shrine the good heart, its creed all truth, its ritual works of love. That's Theodore Parker's words. In our Unitarian Universalist religion, there are acronyms in beloved community, which is our theme for the month of February. And that's important work that we need to know and honor. And yes, this was in the newsletter, but I think it's important because as we are in Black History Month, and it should be Black History Year, and constant work on this issue, that we, again, go over the acronyms, because we are working towards a just and whole world without racism, and ultimately, these groups are showing the way, and we want to honor them. So first, let's talk about the acronym that describes our work. As you can see, it's at the bottom. It's ARAMAC. Anti-racism, anti-oppression, multicultural. A description of a way we want to be as a religion. Some people say ARAMAC to pronounce it. Next, there are 3 acronyms for groups which have been very important in our anti-racism, anti-oppression, multicultural work. Remember that, ARAMAC. The first one is DRUM, just like the instrument, D-R-U-U-M. Diverse Revolutionary UU Multicultural Ministries. It's pronounced, as we know, like the drum, and it's a collective of people who identify as people of color, working together to overcome racism through resistance and transform Unitarian Universalism through multicultural experiences. Then we have BLUU, B-L-U-U, Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism. It's pronounced just like the color, and it's a group of people that came together out of a need for spiritual connection and commitment to creating a more just and loving world for Black people. They developed the 7 principles of the Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism, their take on our 7 principles, as well as introduce the 8th principle, which we have shared in various degrees throughout the year, in addition to having a conversation with the community during AHA night. And that 8th proposed principle is, we, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. Yes, it's systemic. And the last one is R, A-R-E, Allies for Racial Equality. That's us. These are the white folks who support ARAMAC goals and want to help DRUM and BLUU, and all of us are working together to help everyone understand how to make UU and ARAMAC faith a beloved community. So if you haven't visited those websites or had a conversation in your house or with people, now is a great time to do that, because the only way this is going to get better is if we, the white people, stand up to it and start speaking out, because not talking about race is a problem. When parents say, oh, my child doesn't see race, hey, as early as 3 months, they start to distinguish who they want to look for. So yes, it is embedded early on in life, even in utero. So with that, I would like to invite you to join in singing our opening hymn, number 1007, There is a River Flowing in My Soul. Thank you, Randy, for that lovely organ. It is now time to greet one another. Hello, in your living rooms, or maybe you're listening in your car, or who knows, the beauty of a virtual service. You can go to church in your jammies for all we care. We come together as a religious community upholding freedom of conscience, right relationship, and the inherent worth of all people. We value our diversity, and we pledge to care for one another in the spirit of compassion, to speak and listen to each other with respect, and to promote justice and kindness in the world. So, if you sent in a candle of healing and celebration words, that's great, but I didn't get any, so I'm kind of just gonna light some candles and share some things. One moment. So, it's Black History Month. I think every day should be Black History because we have a long road ahead of us and a lot of work to do. This is our problem. We need to address it. So I light that candle to bring energy and action and behavior to do our part to break down the barriers and start talking out. Let's teach our children respect and how to be open-minded. As the youth groups in the Unitarian Universalist religion say, don't be a bagel, be a croissant. Be open. So I'm lighting that candle for the action that is within us that we need to continue. I'm also lighting that candle for Randy. I don't know how much you all know what he does on the side involving technology, the beautiful music that we get. It's not often that churches are doing this. Most of it is through Zoom. They don't really get that. We do. So I just wanted to give a shout out to our musical director here. And you're welcome. In addition to Karen and Sarah and Tony and all the people behind the scenes, I know Joan has been working hard in the kitchen. I know the Board of Trustees have been meeting weekly, sometimes 2 or 3 times, sometimes for 2 hours at a time. So you may question what's going on, but there are a lot of people here who are pulling their weight, and we invite you to be involved in any capacity. So those candles are for the people who, behind the scenes, make our church come to fruition, if you will. So, candles of healing and celebration. Of course, I like the past, the present, and the future for all the things that people hold in their hearts that they wish to share, or maybe just don't know how to say it. So, we acknowledge you, and we are thinking of you. So, before we begin our story for all ages today, which I love, by the way, which is Preaching to the Chickens, a story of our young John Lewis. I've talked about him before, actually almost a year ago, because that is, I believe it's almost a year since he passed away. So before I begin, I want to share something that I shared with you last March, and it's the prologue to his book, Walking with the Wind. And being that our theme is beloved community, I want to highlight him again. Yes, we could talk about Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks and Harriet Tubman, but let's get right into what's presently at the forefront of discussions, and maybe things that are a little more attainable to children. I'm not discrediting at all any of those people, by all means. I mean, you asked me who some of my influential people are, and yeah, I go right to Martin Luther King Jr., because I love everything he says, but I also am tuning in now to John Lewis. This is what he writes in his book, the prologue. That's America to me. Not just the movement for civil rights, but the endless struggle to respond with decency, dignity, and a sense of brotherhood to all the challenges that face us as a nation, as a whole. That is the story, in essence, of my life, of the path to which I've committed since I turned from a boy to a man, and to which I remain committed today. It is the path that extends beyond the issue of race alone, and beyond class as well, and gender, and age, and every other distinction that tends to separate us as human beings rather than bring us together. That path involves nothing less than the pursuit of the most precious and pure concept I have ever known, an ideal I discovered as a young man, and that has guided me like a beacon ever since. And that concept is called beloved community. So let me tell you how I came to understand that concept, and how it ushered me into the heart of the most meaningful and monumental movement of this American century, and how it might steer us all where we deserve to go in the next. Let me tell you about my life. So I'm going to read today, Preaching to the Chickens, the story of young John Lewis. And in my mind, our minister Karen is here on her ukulele singing her chicken song. If you missed it, check out YouTube. We have some past sermons there, and you can certainly enjoy it. So, Preaching to the Chickens, the story of young John Lewis, by Jabari Asim and illustrated by E.B. Lewis. Dedicated to the Grand Girls, and to John Lewis and the soldiers who fought for civil rights, and to my adopted school, Plantersville Elementary in South Carolina. Little John Lewis loved the spring, and he loved it not only because it was the time when the whole planet came alive, but also because it was the season of chicks. And winter was too cold to bring them safely into the world, and summer was too hot, so spring was just right. And everyone on the farm had work to do. Work and put your trust in God, John's mama liked to say. And God's gonna take care of his children. Trusting in God was easy. Work was the harder bargain. There was just so much to do on a huge farm in southern Alabama. Every March, John's father hitched the plow to his stubborn old mule. "Giddy up," he'd shout, and together they'd break new ground, carving lines in the earth. And in the fall, after months of planting and weeding and tending, the cotton would be ready for picking. John's mother cooked the family meals from vegetables she grew: collards, tomatoes, sweet potatoes, and other goodies. And she cleaned the family's clothes in a big iron pot, stirring them in boiling water and washing them with homemade soap before hanging them to dry on the line. Yes, Lord, there was plenty of work on a farm. Well, John was so excited to be put in charge of the chickens. There were about 60 of them. You know, Rhode Island Reds, strong-winged bantams, Dominiques with gray stripes as dull as dishwater, and legs as yellow as daisies. John loved to see them flutter and strut and flap their wings. And every day, John got up early and fed them dried corn just shelled from the cob, and then lined their nests with fresh straw. Cluck, 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 chickens say. John knew that that meant thank you. And in a soft voice, John would say to them, "Enjoy this day God has given us." The chickens, looking straight at him, seemed to understand. As much as John loved spring, he loved church even more. And on Sundays, the whole family headed to services. John and his brothers were dressed in slacks and crisp white shirts, and his sisters in neat dresses. Outside the church, friends and relatives greeted each other with big smiles. Inside, voices joined in song. John often listened to gospel and country music on the radio. He enjoyed it, but he found his favorite music of all in church: plain voices praising God without any instruments at all. Amazing grace. And yep, that's what he loved to hear. As the worshipers clapped and sang, John felt the Holy Spirit rock in the room. It reminded him of the peace he felt when he roused the chickens from slumber and led them into the light of a brand new day. Like the ministers he heard in church, John wanted to preach. So he gathered his chickens in the yard, and he stretched his arms above his flock and let the words pour forth. The chickens nodded and dipped their beaks as if they agreed. They swayed to the rhythm of his voice. John's brothers and sisters couldn't tell one bird from another, but John knew every one, and he had a line of verse for each of them. "Blessed are the peacemakers," he'd say when they fought over their morning meal. "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness," he would tell a hen who didn't want to share, "for they shall be satisfied." One day, the rolling store man stopped by to make a trade, and his truck was packed with flour and sugar and cooking oil and bolts of cloth in the most beautiful colors. "I've got plenty of good things," he said to John's mom and dad, "and I'll give them to you for one of your healthy chickens." Whoa, but John did not want to be part or give any of his chickens away, so he convinced his parents there were other things to trade, like eggs and seeds. So the chickens stayed on the farm, and John learned to speak up for those who can't speak for themselves. When the hen called Big Bell fell into the well and got stuck, John was determined to save her, and he filled a basket with breadcrumbs, and when he lowered it down, she climbed in, and it was pulled to safety. God makes miracles every day, John preached. When you're down, he lifts you up. "Sister Big Bell, I believe you know what I mean." "Cluck, cluck, cluck," Big Bell replied. John knew she meant amen. Now, John even baptized the chicks, bathing them in water from an old syrup can. But Lil Pullet had stayed under too long and appeared to have drowned. Now John prayed over her and laid her in the sun, and after a while, she began to breathe again and soon was up on her feet. He can heal the sick, John declared, and raise the dead. Lil Pullet, can I get a witness? Peep, 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 said Lil Pullet, and John knew that meant amen. Now John loved to tell the hens and chicks the good news. While he fed and watered them, he spoke about the value of hard work and patience. With faith and hope, he said, a bountiful harvest was sure to come. John's hen house sermons became so regular that his brothers and sisters took to calling him preacher. He didn't mind. He knew that someday he'd speak before thousands. He'd hoped that his words would stir people's souls and move them to action. And for now, though, he had his own church right there among the pine trees and rolling hills of southern Alabama. Morning would find him in his usual place, preaching to the chickens. And that is the story of young John Lewis. At this time, I would like to invite you to sing along with our hymn number 1053, How Could Anyone? Yes, we are all connected. Well, we're going to do a little beloved community meditation, if you will, today. Our faith is an expansive one, and historically, you disagreed with those who believed that only Jesus was the way to get to heaven. And instead, we asserted that all people have goodness in them. And God would ensure that all humanity was welcomed into God's love. And that's why we have universalism in our name, Unitarian Universalists. The Universalists believed in universal salvation or universal goodness. This call of universalism was a call to continually expand our love to wider and wider circles, until all of humanity and the natural world is embraced. So, what's one of the ways our faith guides us into becoming a people of beloved community? Well, it tells us to grow your love beyond boundaries. Well, it's easy to think of who we love, our parents and grandparents, our friends, our cats, dogs, pets. Well, what if we wanted to grow that love? We might think of what happens when you throw a stone into a pond. It makes circles, rippling outward bigger and bigger. Well, we could grow love beyond boundaries just like the ripples. And what would it be like? Well, First, it would be our family. And then what would come next? Close friends and extended family. I gotta align this properly. It'll make me crazy. And then third, next, that's us here at church and communities, people in our neighborhood. And then, of course, people in our school, our teams, our club. Look at those ripples growing outward. Next, the people in our town or city or wherever it is you are. An even larger heart. This is the people in our state. You may not even know them, but we are connected. Next, yep, you guessed it, the people in our country. East Coast to West Coast, north, south, east, west, however you want to think of it. And then we have a humongous heart for everyone everywhere else in the world. We might not know where you are, but we are connected. And finally, a humongous heart. All the people in our world community. We can think of love without boundaries for the people we don't know really well and all the people who are different from us. This idea of loving all people and beings, not just close to us and the same as us, is what beloved community is all about. So just take a moment, take a deep breath in, let it out. And know that we are a people of beloved community. You need to branch out. We need to be that croissant. We need to talk about it. We need to stand up. So I'm asking you to act. Teach your children. Share your thoughts. Have a conversation. This is not going anywhere. This is our work. We made the mess. We got to do it. So, while you might not think that's a meditation, it is. Think of the rippling love that we continue to share. And so, with that, I invite you to join along in our closing hymn, 402, From You I Receive. Let your light shine. Be a source of strength and courage. Share your wisdom and radiate love. It sounds simple, but it's actually hard. And it's that hard work that brings us here together. That's why we share this church to become social justice ambassadors to our earth. Our work is past due. It's time to engage. So, signing out, may words I say be kind and true. May love be a guide in all I do. May kindness sing within my heart. And may peace be with us while we're apart. Enjoy.